I get why Pokemon was so easy. First time I played through the main game, words could not describe how bad I was at exploration, as I had never really had the motivation to try that as a kid. Would you believe that the evil genius of today could not figure out some puzzles, even with the official Pokemon paperback guide? Lucky for me back then, I'm not the only one that struggled in a good way. After all, anyone who has ever been to school for the first time in their life knows that learning is a struggling process. So naturally, you are going to struggle with at least one obstacle you didn't know about. Flash forward years later, and you see a ROM hack that could challenge the greatest Nuzlockers in the world, including the VGC champion. And of course, there are the legendary 151 attempts. But how? There already existed multiple, countless ROM hacks that make up the difficulty, sometimes slightly as a feature of the fan game, and sometimes the main intent. Some are rather infamous for their difficulty in the past, sort of like Pokemon Snakewood. Lately we got Unbound, and of course, Radical Red, my competitor. But way before then, Blue Kaizo received fame as the very first difficulty hack coming from Gen 1 of all places, often surpassing the difficulty of other famous Gen 3 ROM hacks, which were by far the most common. I would like to think that the Pokemon Kaizo hacks sort of raised the bar for difficulty hacks, as it certainly did push a lot of boundaries on what is hard, what is fair, and what is fun. And yet, a lot of people struggled far less with other hacks than with 2 out of 3 of my hacks. The first of my hacks, Blue Kaizo, took 49 proven attempts to Nuzlocke, which is far larger than most hard hacks, let alone Emerald Kaizo, which took 9 proven attempts at the lowest, and of course 151 proven attempts at the highest. Why is that? The first Dark Rising Nuzlocke did not take anywhere near as many attempts to beat. Various other ROM hacks don't exactly reach the double digits of a proven Nuzlocke attempts, unless someone can give me proven attempts. In addition, there is verifiable evidence that Emerald Kaizo inflicts PTSD and strikes fear into the hearts of men. Its impact sort of made everyone cope through the pandemic with 2020 going on. Why is that the case? Most hard mode ROM hacks end up being similar to Final Fantasy as a frame of reference. Sometimes you get something strong and you just grind for hours, get the overpowered setup. My frame of references for the Kaizo hacks were very different from most games, but I will have to start at the very beginning. For the most part, the gym leaders were anticlimactic. It helped that I was using Bulbasaur first try. I was able to handle Sabrina because it took some effort to figure out how to even get to her. Nothing too extreme, only the rival was being the most challenging because he is well balanced. There was a time where I thought beating the entire gauntlet, the Elite Four and the champion, was the most amazing thing ever. Even with the guide, after 3 days of trying on my battery dying on the Game Boy Color, I finally achieved victory. And that was it. Wasn't really much to do other than aimlessly raise my team and show off to whichever Game Boy user I crossed paths with. I wouldn't say we were particularly good. Whoever had the most high-level Pokemon would usually win. Those were simpler times. Then came Pokemon Stadium. The music and the graphics were amazing, and much to my shock, we could play with all 150 Pokemon in the multiplayer. There was also mini-games that we could have fun with. There, of course, was the Stadium Cups and the Gym Leader Castle. After beating Pokemon Blue, I felt pretty confident that I could beat most of the stuff, except Prime Cup. See, back then, we didn't have rare candy cheats. A game chart, which I never heard of back then, obviously would cost a lot of money. So I could only go as far as the Ultra Ball Cup, and lose to the double team spamming semi-finalist Scientist, with my highest level being 80 and no Mewtwo since I killed it. Yeah, those were the days. Still, there were some memorable parts. Pokecup Ultra Ball kicked my ass in the second battle. My Rhydon from the Unknown Dungeon got destroyed by Submission Electabuzz and destroyed the rest of my team with Thunderwave spam. And of course, Lieutenant Surge in the Gym Leader Castle caught me off guard with the Surfing Raichu. Needless to say, there was a step up in difficulty, and no level advantage there. I had to get better at Pokemon, obviously. Still, the humbling experience tickled my inner masochism back then, as I felt the need to beat the seemingly impossible challenge for a great achievement. A lot of the gym trainers, and then Blaine, started using Pokemon that weren't coinciding with the team type. They swapped two trainer types between Sabrina and Blaine, just to throw curveballs at much greater levels than the gyms Koga and, Giovanni ran, back in the original games. And then came Pokemon Stadium 2. Holy hell, that game was far more difficult, if you aren't using a Gen 2 Snorlax. So basically, Challenge Cup was the ultimate obstacle for me, as this was the last challenge before I could hit Round 2. Round 2 was mostly stumbling blocks with the Snorlax, except for Challenge Cup Ultra Ball, which took me 37 attempts to finally beat. For the Master Ball, I just fished for the Snorlax. It took me 2 tries. I have tried the rentals, and no, I could not. My tiny brain back then wasn't good enough. I just went for the in-game Snorlax. What, you thought I was going to beat this with rentals? Round 2 and Pokemon Stadium 2? What do you think I am, Werster? I will say this. Pokemon Stadium 2, Round 2, made Bruno, of all people, the scariest battle in the whole game. That's right. Bruno is the one foe that can actually kill a Snorlax, but who would expect the laughingstock of the boss fights in all the other games would actually be capable of killing my own Safeguard Mewtwo back then? Yes, I learned. With Quick Claw Fisher. Yes, Fisher, the one move found in Red and Blue that Bruno happened to use on his Machamp, turned out to be the ultimate secret weapon against the most powerful Pokemon in the world. Which, by the way, was supposed to be super effective against the supposed joke of the Elite Four in Pokemon Stadium 2. Now, my love for difficult challenges actually came from different games, so this might seem like a massive divergence for Pokemon, but trust me, the divergence offered variable perspectives. And so, the first non-Pokemon game that opened my mind to hard mode games was... don't laugh, it's Sonic Adventure 2 Hard Mode. Well, you thought I was bringing up Dark Souls, didn't you? The basic premise is simple. You went through the base story mode, and the hard mode in the end had level changes and smarter, more aggressive military enemies. For those who have played Adventure 2, I know what you're all thinking. LOL, enemy placement is bad. If you ignore the context of what militaries are all about. See, Sonic Adventure 2 could actually get away with the so-called bad enemy placement, because it would actually coincide with the story integration, because you see, militaries do not give a shit about honorable tactics when it comes to absolutely screwing over their targets and killing them. Even if they ambush you or you stand in your path, they set traps. That's why SA2, with all the little hidden depths that it has a stubborn shelf life. Let's be real here. You don't even think about Sonic enemies post-2006 Sonic games. Enemies are a non-factor, more like destructible props to kick around circuit balls instead of threats. Regardless, that was the very first time I encountered the very concept of a hard mode at a youthful age. There is another Nintendo game that I will go over in terms of pure raw difficulty that honestly might be on par with Dark Souls, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Because then came Kingdom Hearts, the Kingdom Hearts series, specifically the climax story bosses where they put you to the test already. The difficulty of these particular battles illustrates the stakes quite well. The bad guys aren't playing around at all. And because of that, on occasion I get those weird thoughts where I wonder what each of the games that I played would look like as a hard mode. And as it turns out, through the power of YouTube, I am not the only one. As we flash forward to 2008, where YouTube started taking off, where the Let's Players only had crappy cameras back then to record playing on the DVS, and then the invention of the emulators that can be recorded. There came...
a flamethrower, what?
Or just general video game ROM hacks to play around with just to show off on YouTube, since, well, again, you would have to use the crappy camera back then. And funny enough, while I've seen a lot of Pokemon Let's Plays in the past, mostly from Maryland, Sugar Conroy, and everything, one interesting thing, the first ROM hack I have ever seen was of Fire Red Omega. And you know something? I think what really got me hooked was the Onyx, where it used its good speed to land a swagger.
No! Why? Why would you have swagger?
There was a subtle brilliance that came with that last-ditch effort from that Onyx, taking a lot of risk and just causing anxiety to the player who thought he had that battle at the end of all 6 Pokemon. Now, before we get into various hard ROM hacks, I gotta have a look at the other hard games on YouTube that was displayed by Let's Players. One obviously, was of course of Super Mario Bros., which was difficult if you didn't use the cape. But then came Super Mario Bros. Kaizo, with ProtonJon getting his worst nightmares here. Every hardest ROM hack I have ever seen, none of them have approached the form of hilarious trolling that Super Mario Bros. Kaizo did to this man. The ROM hack Snakewood actually comes the closest to that level in the form of the Inquisition Room, which required a lot of scripting talent to pull off the most obnoxious puzzle I have ever seen. Speaking of ROM hacks, one fascinating experiment that caught my eye was Kaizo Mario 64. A hack of an N64 game, which opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities. It is an important stepping stone and inspiration. And sure, some mistakes were made on the earliest Mario 64 hacks, but some interesting possibilities which in turn have led to some creative Mario ROM hacks, and some of which turn out to be very, very hard. We can't talk about certain difficult games without really good Let's Players to go through all of that. And the one Let's Player that caught my interest was Pinkittyrose. And why is it that the lesser known yet female YouTuber content creators are actually the most competent when it comes to overcoming challenges? I kid you not, she could play Battletoads and I would want to be the guy so casually. She beat the rat without even knocking it aside. That's insane. That takes some really mad skill right there. Those games in particular diversified the difficulty scaling a little bit, Battletoads threw new obstacles progressively, while I Want to Be the Guy relied more on surprises and embraces the full-blown creativity and ridiculousness of the setting. I mean, just think of it as a ultra-hard mode of the Subspace Emissary, but way harder, and utilizing more Nintendo characters. And that's what I wanted my hacks to sort of be like, not just hard, but also creative and progressive, as did so did many. However, Pokemon has a large RNG element to it, unlike most hard games. Some can rightfully complain about the hacks. There were tournaments and even communities that dedicated to one rule of banning double team invasion for a healthy battling environment. And that is true. It is boring and it takes no skill at all to use double team and get lucky to overcome a challenge. Though it is funny on short bursts when it's done to a human player. They make communities to minimize hacks in the tournament play, and truth be told, minimizing the use of double team and ROM hacks generally makes the games better. Although the same cannot be said for the player who chooses to spam double team and claim they are skilled. But let's not delve into that bias again. Instead, let's talk about the real worst form of hacks. And believe it or not, Pokemon is not the worst offender with hacks. That dishonor goes to Mario Kart. Especially Mario Kart Wii. My blood boils when I get screwed over out of my victory in the Mario Kart Wii Cups by an endless supply of lightning bolts, blue shells, and red shells. As a result, there are some bits of RNG in the hacks. Blue Kaizo AI was purely a roulette, as will be discussed in the AI video. Critical hits play a massive factor. In fact, I am amazed that the hardcore Nuzlockers took into account the crit ranges, which most Nuzlockers do not. Instead, most Nuzlockers just grind twice as high to evade the crit deaths just by one-shotting the opponent. Really, only battle armor could just eliminate the crit ranges, or, shell armor. Same similar ability. But only crits can penetrate the calm minds, all the bulk ups, all the curses. So just to reaffirm that Pokemon, even the easy ones, have an impressive element of luck. How big the risk depends on how many turns the enemy has to attack. And that is rather underwhelming to see, or even devote much of my time. I do want a hack that allows people to use their favorite Pokemon most of the time. I do have to apologize for those who love Chansey and Blissey. And speaking of racing games, speaking of like the hard games, like I'm going to talk about the one game that really pushed like my desire to overcome challenges right here. See, there is this one racing game, and it is also legitimately the hardest game I have ever beaten in my teenage years. Consider this the Dark Souls of racing games. I give you F-Zero GX Story Mode. It takes a lot of skill to learn the controls of the F-Zero ships. It takes quite a bit more to defeat the opponents. And then there is the story mode. It was a struggle to learn how to beat the first level, getting all those capsules. And guess what? That was the normal mode. Yes, I got scared off of attempting hard mode until I specifically wanted a part, like a specific ship part in Chapter 3. It took numerous attempts and a bit of luck to beat the very hard mode of Chapter 3, but the achievement was worth it. And then came Chapter 6, Black Shadow's Trap, where I had to stop for a while. That chapter made me hate Batman and Robin over there because they tried to kill me with a sadistic trap, forcing me to learn the corners and memorize the routes. The really long routes, and the area just had the nerve to slip a very tight turn near the end, which has killed me a couple of times to the point of rage quitting. But nothing prepared me for the horror that is Chapter 7. It seems that Chernabog souped up his Batmobile to reach first place. The Black Bull does have the highest max speed out of every vehicle, but from the way it behaved, it seemed more like a different machine. Higher acceleration, but much lower defenses, to the point that the Blue Falcon of all ships can one-hit kill the Batmobile. Killing the roided up Batman was actually the key to winning this hard chapter. Until 2 more chapters came up. But damn, that was satisfying to finally defeat. It took all my concentration and near death to do it. It was then I noticed in a certain forum that someone else had a far worse experience with it than I did, to the point of not only crying about it, but being unable to articulate dignified words for his experience. Even I, who was younger, didn't rage that hard, nor did I blame the game for it. Chernabog over there was as tough as he looked, and he gave me a hell of a fight for the prize, as his life literally depended on winning, as established in the first chapter. The payoff? The real main villain punishes him for his failure. And this guy just wonders, why does the villain have to win? Well, that's why. Batman on roids was essentially held hostage by Rainbow Darth Vader over there, and he had a very good reason to use every tactic in the book to try to kill me and win. And that's what really sells it. Like, that's what sells the difficulty, and the difficulty sells the story right there. The stakes are really, really high, both for the player and especially for the bad guy. See, the best way to use difficulty is to enhance the story experience. You want to take your bad guy as a serious threat, make him difficult. Are you going to go through a tough challenge? You, gotta earn that victory. Crying about your troubles won't help you in the long run, and the only thing that you'll get is a sympathetic ear and nothing more than that to actually help you out. You gotta push yourself. You gotta make the jump. And so, I tried to recreate the unforgiving experiences I've had with previous hard games and try to emulate the feelings a player would get out of other hard games and fan games that claim to be the hardest of all games. I have seen other hard Pokemon hacks, and they don't even compare to the base games that I have seen or played. Sorry to bring that up. Frame of references are good, though admittedly, I wanted to make a hack that is the be-all, end-all hardest ROM hack that will put you through the test, but also to keep it fun, balance it out, and exciting, and also trollish enough to give the audience and me a laugh. Now, this is going to be rather tough for me to do with Platinum. There is quite a lot of material that I'm going to have to go through with, a lot of balancing and a lot of content to sift through, but damn it, I will try. and hopefully afterwards I could overcome some of the biggest obstacles in life. We're in some of the darkest periods in the world right now. When the day comes, I may reveal myself, but that might take a lot of Patreon support. Still, the priorities will be on the completion of Platinum Kaizo, as I am going through the evaluation and some warm-up edits to prepare myself for the ultimate playtest of Platinum. Thank you all for watching, my fellow audience.